Hi everyone, it's Karen Costa. I've been wanting to make this video for you for a while. I'm going to be talking to you today about why I use trauma aware instead of trauma informed when I talk about trauma aware teaching. And you'll see here on your screen the Missouri model. This is a model for systems and organizations to use to bring trauma, our knowledge of its impacts on us on multiple levels, into our organizations. And it's a way for us to plan that change, right? To notice where we are and to notice where we want to go. And trauma informed, you'll see here on this slide, is where we want to go. That is an organization or an institution or college, university, school that has completely transformed their culture so that awareness of trauma and its impacts, that's woven into every decision that's made, every department, every organization, every conversation includes awareness of trauma, right? So this is big deal stuff. This is years in the making. If you've ever been a part of a large scale cultural change at your institution, transformational change, you know that it doesn't happen overnight. And truly, there really isn't a point where you say, okay, we're trauma informed, we can relax now, right? This is an ongoing process. But trauma informed means widespread culture change, transformation. Trauma aware is where I focus my work, trauma aware teaching. That's level 1. I would argue that within higher education, we're at level 0 in most cases. There are absolutely exceptions to this. Often we will see department level impacts. So for example, a department of social work might have moved along this scale and might even within a department of social work or department of counseling or department of human services might even have in some cases within that department reached the level of trauma informed. But these are pockets within higher education. I would argue that most of us in higher education are at level 0. And that's fine. That's where we are. We want to name where we are, right? We gotta tell the truth about this. So I would argue we're at 0, pre-trauma aware, which means most of us in higher education aren't able to comfortably speak to what trauma is and its impacts. Trauma aware, level 1, that's where I am focusing my work. And that is about helping people to understand what trauma is and how it impacts teachers and students, how it shows up in our classrooms. That is my focus. And I think that's just an important distinction to make, right? I think it's important to tell the truth. I think it's important to tell the truth about where we are if we're going to get to this point of transformational change. I also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of folks out there who are using the term trauma informed. And I can't speak to why they choose that, but I know there's a lot of people using that language who are doing amazing, important work. So I don't want to discount that in any way. I just want to share and be transparent about why I use these words trauma aware. So I want to give you one more piece of information about trauma aware teaching. This is what trauma aware looks like. And I'm going to share the citation for this in the comments of the YouTube video. This comes from a report about that Missouri model within schools specifically. And this is what trauma aware looks like. In a trauma aware school, the staff have been informed about trauma. There have been conversations about trauma with everybody in the school, and that includes historical and community trauma. So an example of that would be the impacts of racism and recognizing that racism is a type of trauma. And everybody in that institution can comfortably speak to trauma, what it is and its impacts. And folks have started to consider, what does this mean for my work, right? So how does this show up in my classroom? How does this show up in me and in my students and in my colleagues and in meetings and in relationships? We've just started to ask those questions. So this is where I work. I am trying to bring trauma awareness to higher education with a focus on trauma-aware teaching, how trauma shows up in classrooms for faculty and for students. So I hope this video was helpful to clarify my use of trauma-aware. If anybody has any questions, pop them in the comments, or you know where to find me on social media. And I'm wishing you all a good day. Thank you for coming to learn with me today, and take care of yourself. Thank you.